This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. We are breaking with convention, War, Peace, and the Presidency, our 2 hours of daily coverage from here in Charlotte, North Carolina, on the second day of the Democratic National Convention. I'm Amy Goodman. The celebratory mood here in Charlotte was on display Tuesday night as thousands of delegates kicked off the Democratic Convention and millions watched on television. But the political parties continue beyond what the public sees on primetime broadcasts or even inside the convention center. There are exclusive events underway here that range from corporate-sponsored parties hosted by the powerful Democratic Governors Association to a Super Orama party hosted by the 3 top Democratic super PACs, where the recommended contribution starts at $25,000. Well, our next guest has been keeping an eye on the hundreds of events reserved for big donors and powerful figures. Liz Bartolomeo is with the Sunlight Foundation, which is tracking money and influence here at the DNC. They've put together a website called partytime.org that lets you know who's fundraising and where. And Liz has attended many of the parties herself. Liz, welcome to Democracy Now!
Thank you.
So it has been pouring outside, but also inside.
It's raining money. All the rain last night didn't stop the party scene happening after the convention proceedings ended.
Just 1 second here. I should probably be wearing my credentials because you can't get on the convention floor without them. But let's see. My credential has the AT&T logo on it.
As do mine.
And what's interesting for the journalists, and of course all the delegates as well, AT&T was also one of the major sponsors of the 2008 convention. Originally, Senator Obama said he would filibuster any legislation that granted retroactive immunity to AT&T and other companies for spying on American citizens. But when actually the bill was on the floor, he voted for it. And within a few weeks, the Democratic Convention 2008 had AT&T branded on the delegates' bags. But it's not only AT&T. That's on the lanyard. Let's see. Just the ID we have to wear to get into, for example, Bank of America Stadium, we have here. And on the ID here, it says, this is for Tuesday and Wednesday, my ID, Time Warner Cable Arena. So Time Warner, AT&T, Bank of America. Talk about what else you've been collecting.
We've been collecting a number of events, swag, as we like to say, from events, and also capturing what's on the corporate signage. Because what the Democrat Host Committee has voluntarily chose to do is not accept corporate money in terms of cash. They're allowed to receive in-kind donations, but all these auxiliary parties that are happening morning, noon, and night around the Democratic Convention here have numerous corporate sponsors. You're seeing Walmart, Coca-Cola, AT&T again, Verizon again, even Google and Facebook are having events here in Charlotte.
What's Walmart doing?
Walmart, I know they were listed as a sponsor for a Congressional Black Caucus event. The Congressional Black Caucus is throwing a series of luncheons, evening events, and they're one of their listed sponsors.
So how do you find out who's sponsoring what party?
A lot of it has to do going to the site. One thing that Sunlight does on our Political Party Time website is we know how much it might cost to host one of these events, to be listed as a sponsor. It could be $25,000. It could be as high as $150,000. So as my colleague and I go to these events, see the influence that is happening, the money on the ground here at the convention, we snap a picture of the corporate logo. As we walk around talking to people, kind of ask, oh, who are you here with? How do you get your tickets? It might be, oh, we're one of the hosts. We got 25 free tickets. But most of the times it's just really finding that corporate signage.
Talk about the largest sponsors of the Democratic Convention, and then we'll go back to the Republican Convention, and you can match them up.
Sure. I mean, we're seeing a lot of the same names all around town in terms of the corporate sponsors, also in terms of the folks hosting events. As I mentioned earlier, Facebook has been hosting stuff. Google has had a big presence.
And what do they get for this?
They get publicity. They get their name out there. The political conventions are 4 days. thousands of people, a lot of media here as well, with really not much to do. They're sort of shuttled from site to site, walk around town, stroll around town, and in both conventions, the delegates, the attendees are very excited to be nominating their choice for president. So there is a party atmosphere. There are also a lot of influencers here, members of Congress, members of the administration, local and state officials as well. So with all that sort of power play in motion, these groups, they spend thousands, millions of dollars just so to get their name out there.
Citizens United. Talk about what's happened since the Supreme Court decision, and also talk about something we used to hear about in the past, 527s and their role today.
Yeah, I mean, this is the year of the super PACs, the election of the super PACs. They have spent over $214 million so far, placing ads on television, doing phone banking, creating websites and the like, but we're not really seeing that big of a super PAC presence at the conventions. Some of the major players are hosting events. For instance, here in Charlotte, Priorities USA Action, House Majority PAC, and Majority PAC are throwing a series of events they're dubbing as a Super-O-Rama under the tag Unity Conventions 2012.
Unity Convention.
Unity Convention 2012.
The nuclear companies. Yesterday we had a conversation with two local activists about their concerns about Duke Energy and nuclear power. But Duke Energy is not the largest U.S. company involved with nuclear power. Exelon is. Talk about Exelon's presence.
I actually personally have not seen Exelon in around town. They might be sponsoring events, but I just don't know. I haven't seen their name come up yet. I've seen Duke Energy though everywhere.
Tell me about Duke Energy.
Duke Energy is one of the largest businesses here. They have a giant tower right down the street from here. They're providing a lot of the services that the convention needs to operate. They have provided some loans to the convention host committee, and they also help sponsor Carolina Fest, which was the big community festival, which did accept corporate sponsors because it was thrown by a nonprofit on Labor Day here.
Last month, Sunlight, Public Citizen, you signed a letter making a demand of lawmakers. What was that?
We signed a lot of letters.
I'm talking about the letter that asked these lawmakers not to go to lobbyist-sponsored events.
Oh, yes. It's something that we have joined with Public Citizen, is we really, ethics watchdog on the ground, seeing if this so-called toothpick rule is there. I will say I have seen governors at events. I have seen members of Congress on the street. I have not seen a member of Congress at one of these events yet.
So the 527s. 527's super PACs, how are they different? How are they the same?
Super PACs can accept unlimited funds. They have to disclose their donors. They can use this money to place issue ads. They often, are in support of or against a candidate, and they tell the FEC that. 527s, like the Democratic Governors Association, which is some events that Sunlight has been looking at this week, can accept money, can spend it on independent expenditures, but they were big in 2004 with the Swift Vote veterans for truth. A lot of times, the 527s have created super PACs just so they can take as much money as they want to spend to try to get the people they want in office in office.
Priorities USA, who are they?
Priorities USA is one of the largest Democratic super PACs. One of the main runners of it is Bill Burton, used to be an Obama press secretary. They have happily announced in a press release I received yesterday that they raised $10 million last month. However, compared to the Romney super PAC, Restore Our Future has raised $89 million overall, and Priorities USA Action has only raised about $25 million overall. It was one of the calls that they made at their event yesterday that my colleague attended.
Talk about what else you've got here on the table.
Yeah, when you go to these events, you get passes, you get swag, as I like to call it, mementos to take away. Sometimes it's just like, it's just an invite. So this is the access card that you need to get in the Democratic Governors Association late night event at Mez on Monday night. It was disco themed. Gave you directions on the back, showed it security when you entered the door.
And who sponsored it?
There was a number of sponsors there. We had about 15 overall. They included, I believe Comcast was one of them. I believe Aflac was one of them. They had totally different slate of sponsors their first night. On Sunday night, they had more of a young people's DJ dance party. Sometimes you have more issue-based swag, where this is from the Planned Parenthood Action Fund event. It's condoms that say protect yourself from Romney and Ryan, give information on how you can go online to sort of say this. It
says protect yourself from Romney and Ryan?
Yes. And gives the website to the Planned Parenthood Action Fund. This was all over the cocktail tables at the event last night. People were grabbing them, sort of talking about them, and keeping in the hot pink theme that the party had. This is just a sort of beer koozie that I found on a table at the Ritz. It's from the Blue Bash, which was the state party for Alabama, Florida, and South Carolina, sort of big mouth bass type of thing.
Liz, we talked about money in the Republican convention last week, but that was at the beginning of the week. Talk about your summary of what happened last week in Tampa.
Yeah. One thing that became really quickly clear in Tampa is it was a pyramid convention in terms of access. The more money you had, the closer to the top of the most senior members of the party you got. We were very interested in sort of the mid-level lobbying type events that you had to basically be an event sponsor to get there. But my colleague was tracking what the super PAC donors, people like Sheldon Adelson and his wife, Dr. Miriam Adelson, were doing. And Mr. Adelson showed up at an event for the Republican Jewish Coalition, which he has given about $6 million to this election year. Members of Congress were in an event. It was closed to press. And at one point, Sheldon Adelson was putting on a button that said, Obama, oy vey.
Well, people also can go to our website at democracynow.org, because Democracy Now's Mike Burke attempted to ask Sheldon Adelson exactly how much money he would be spending on this election. But his daughter intervened, grabbed the camera of our videographer, Hani Massoud, was taking it into the Adelson suite, and then when our team reached for it, she dropped it on the ground, also pushing our producer back. That was our team's attempt to try to find out just how much money is being spent.
I mean, a lot of the more secretive donors just would not talk to the press, would not really acknowledge how much money they spent, even though they are spending millions of dollars or bundling millions of dollars for the Republican campaign.
The Koch brothers and the Republican Party?
You know, David Koch was there last year.
He was a delegate.
He was a delegate. The Americans for Prosperity event, which the Kochs have greatly funded. My colleague tried to go to the event and was very firmly told, you're not allowed to be here by
You identified yourself as the Sunlight Foundation?
We did identify ourselves as the Sunlight Foundation.
It's interesting, when I attempted to interview David Koch within the New York delegation, though he's a very tall man, he was sitting and everyone around him stood up, and he sort of cowered behind them, so it made it impossible to ask him a question. All the delegates around him stood up to protect him from a reporter's questions.
Yeah. And we've been finding, though, here in the Charlotte convention, we're talking to super PAC donors at both conventions, and you know, my colleague ran into Jim Simmons, who was given to a few Democratic super PACs last night as we were entering the Time Warner Cable Arena, and he was chatting up. He, was in a little bit of a rush, but didn't try to push away, not want to talk about it. So the donors here seem very, they're happy to be talking about the funding and the fundraising they're doing for the Democrats.
I mean, the convention itself is happening in the Time Warner Cable Convention Center. AT&T is around our necks, the lanyards on our necks, and legislators are legislating constantly around issues of the telecom, some of the most powerful corporations in this country.
Oh, they really are, and I don't think it's going unnoticed.
And of course, President Obama will be speaking at the Bank of America Stadium, though the Democrats have renamed it the Panther Stadium for the week. Thank you very much, Liz Bartolomeo. I want to thank you all for being with us. Liz Bartolomeo is with the Sunlight Foundation, which is tracking the money and influence here at the Democratic Party's National Convention. And a happy 10th anniversary to our senior producer, Mike Burke, who